It appears quite evident that this shooter really focused on specific areas, specific communities, which has had higher concentrations of people of color, in this case African American, for the sole purpose of inflicting as much damage and carnage as possible.
Hello again, everyone. Dave Benson here from CPPS, the Center for Personal Protection and Safety. I'm the Senior Advisor for Threat Mitigation and Global Operations. We're going to go ahead and do a reprise, if you will, of a video I did previously some time back, because we received excellent feedback and because we think it's still as timely today as when I first recorded it. What the media isn't saying about active assailants. I go into behaviors a little bit and what are some of the consistencies that we've seen with some of the more unique cases. So I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, reach out to us at info@cpps.com or reach out to me directly. And until next time, take care.
With another video in response to yet another series of tragedies in our country involving targeted and intentional violence. I want to focus a little bit on what are some of the commonalities that we're seeing with these acts of mass violence, but also what is a little bit different than some of the other circumstances and events that we've seen. So first and foremost, one of the things that continues to be alive and well as we as threat assessors and threat managers study these tragic cases is the concept of what we call the contagion event. And basically that means that there's a lot of attention paid by individuals that are either on the pathway to intentional violence or contemplating committing one of these heinous acts to what's happened in the past, and particularly what's happened recently. Some folks will call those copycats, but not only are they looking to what was done in the past, some of the large events of mass violence, extreme violence, if you will, but they're also mimicking and copying the techniques, some of the lessons learned, what worked for some of the past individuals and not. For example, we now know in the tragic mass shooting at the Tops grocery store in Buffalo, New York, that much of the planning behavior and much of the rhetoric that the shooter utilized, both by putting together about a 180-page manifesto and then also as a practical matter, tactically and studying and theories that I'll talk about in a minute, were borrowed, if not in fact outright plagiarized from other attackers in other events such as the Christchurch shooting and others. One of the things that I want to spend a little time on this morning is that not all mass shootings involve active assailants, but almost all active assailants are mass shootings. And so the difference, of course, is the targeting, the deliberately going to locations where there will be a populated area and committing these types of attacks. And then the other issue that's come to light very quickly as we're beginning to learn more and more about the Buffalo shooting is that this was clearly a hate crime, that it was planned, that it was specifically targeted to maximize the amount of death and carnage and injury to a minority group, people of color. And so hate crimes only amount to about 10 to 13 to 14% of all of these active assailant incidents. But they're a significant 13 to 14% because now, at least in the past few years, we've seen an increase in targeting of retail and in fact the grocery store industry as well. One of the reasons that that's happening, in my professional opinion, is because very much targets of opportunity. You have a large cross-section of the communities of which these stores serve, potentially a large volume of people in and out in any given day and time. But also, it appears quite evident that this shooter really focused on specific areas, specific communities which has had higher concentration of people of color, in this case African American, for the sole purpose of inflicting as much damage and carnage as possible. So I don't think there's any doubt, even in these early days, that this is in fact a hate crime. Getting back into percentages of these attacks, that we believe are perceived based upon hate crimes and hate targeting, upwards of 13% now occupy the retail and the grocery industry. So this is of some concern. Another thing to keep in mind when we're talking about a white supremacy or ultranationalist ideology is that the length and breadth of potential targets is just multiplied exponentially. If your goal is to inflict and harm and disrupt communities of color and other minorities, immigrant and otherwise, that's a very broad brush. Whereas many of these individuals that commit these acts of targeted and intentional violence narrow down their targets to a fairly specific person, group, company, whatever it might be. Another interesting aspect of this was the radicalization. There's no question that a semblance of radicalization took place, much of it self-radicalization, meaning that this individual searched for people with like ideas and a history of other tragedies like this, particularly in social media. So a good portion of that research, and then also getting online with chat rooms and other areas of the web that heretofore have been considered fringe elements, are now much more readily available just by turning on your computer or doing a search on your phone or engaging in chat rooms or websites. So why is this important? Well, and we say that many times these individuals are self-radicalized, but that's not really accurate, because what we're really seeing is a group of people, albeit virtually, that many times provide comfort and support, and in some cases even encourage the small percentage, admittedly, of individuals that are having difficulty coping with life's challenges, and they have latched on to these ideologies to actually encourage them to go out and commit these acts. So when we talk about an individual assailant, it's misleading. Yes, it might have been one individual that actually did the initial planning, donned the tactical gear, and went out and committed these crimes. But they have had support and done their research virtually well in advance. And so that type of social media radicalization means that you're not actually doing it yourself. You have a crowd of individuals that are providing comfort and support. So that's important to remember. Another important piece of this is some of these theories and some of these concepts, even among the white supremacist and ultranationalist communities, have been considered radical and fringe concepts, are now becoming apparently more and more mainstream based upon not only social media, but more and more certain media outlets that discuss these things in a way that causes some of these individuals to believe that, hey, this is much more mainstream than I thought. For example, if you believe in the Great Replacement theory, that in fact the white race is been supplanted by minorities and immigrants and people of color, and you hear this on international media, sometimes talking about it, not condemning it, not necessarily promoting it, but talking about it as if it's just another news day, this provides an extra incentive, in my opinion, and is very concerning for these individuals as they move forward. Another piece I want to talk about that is a little bit different than what we normally see when we have an active and targeted violence or an active assailant, and that is oftentimes these perpetrators will commit acts within their communities. Certainly in the last couple of years, we've seen a bit of a deviation from that. We saw the shooting in Walmart shooting in Texas, certainly appears to be the case in the Buffalo shooting, that the perpetrators of these acts actually travel some distance to other communities other than the communities that they reside and where they belong. So that's a bit of a divergence that we have to digest as we look at all of this. So in summary, it's more the same. Sadly, there's planning, there's the contagion effect, there's targeting acquisition, there is a radicalization, if you will, whether it be direct, inspired, or self. It's exacerbated sometimes by online chat rooms and the media. But traveling to other communities to commit these crimes, particularly other communities that are represented by minorities and people of color, is particularly troubling. You know, the FBI made it very clear that the number one concern that they have domestically is domestic homegrown terrorism. And much of that is based upon the ultranationalists and the white supremacist movement. I was really surprised to find out in my home state of Florida that we have the second largest accumulation of recognized hate groups in the United States after California. We have somewhere about 56 and 58. And so while not everybody that believes in this ideology, as distasteful as I personally find it to be, are not going to be going to commit some of these acts of violence, there is that small but significant portion that take aid and comfort, adhere to these beliefs, and then find a way to lash out and air their grievances in a violent way. So I hope you found this helpful. We will continue with these concepts and commentaries in the future. Again, Dave Benson with the Center for Personal Protection and Safety. Until next time, stay safe out there.